Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. So the photograph of Dee Devlin as she emerged from court with Conor McGregor after the jury found with Nikita Hand's version of events that he had assaulted her, was this sort of face that people felt sorry for? I think she looked shocked. She looked really sort of done over or something, didn't she?
Yeah, she just looked a bit broken, really.
Broken,
she?
Yeah, she did. And I think people were kind of like there was a lot of kind of poor Dee reaction. Until we actually saw what that face meant, and it was nothing that was broken. It was angry, wasn't it?
It was angry. Well, yeah, unless she had a couple of days to mull it over. But yeah, we were all, as Clodagh wrote over the weekend, all the reporters in the courtroom throughout that trial had wondered where Dee was. Was she keeping her head down, or was she embarrassed about what was going on in the trial? And then obviously they all turned up at the last day, their Christian Dior bag and everything. But then obviously that was before she knew the verdict. And then coming out, you think, God, is this the moment of reckoning, or is this the moment of realization? And then the I don't know how to describe it, but just her reaction on social media on Monday night was shocking, is kind of how I would describe it. Obviously she spoke out. She put a post up on her page.
So what is this on Instagram?
It's on Instagram, yeah. So the post up on her page.
What sort of followers has she got on Instagram?
She would have, I actually haven't looked at him, and
She has
but she has a lot.
Millions.
Yeah, she has a lot.
And does she usually kind of put up like independent stuff, or is it all about him? Like, do we know a bit about Dee Devlin?
Not really. She hasn't really put much up that, like, she doesn't put much up often, but when she does, it's around him.
Yeah.
She's very much part of his public persona, her and the kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, she puts up stuff along the lines of being a great dad, and, you know, or she might comment on his post, love you baby, and this kind of thing. But I've never really seen her put anything personal up. But I guess she is part of that unit. Even her, like, she was involved in his companies, and, you know, she's very much, her public persona is all linked to him, basically.
And they're together since before he was famous, and when they were poor and teenage sweethearts, basically.
Yeah, they met in a nightclub, and they're together at least 15 years, and they got engaged in August 2020. So,
right.
I mean, a long time.
So what did she say?
So basically, well, so on her grid, which is what stays on the grid, you know, she basically said about how she put a picture of the couple with their daughter, Kriya, and their son. And she said, I love him, I trust him, and I believe him. Our 4 beautiful children whose smiling faces and happy hearts are testimony to the man he is and who we are. No one is entitled to comment on our relationship. We trust one another and love one another. Nothing or nobody will change that. Our family stands strong.
So is that against, do you read that, is against the media for commenting on the relationship and all the commentary that went on about her? Yeah,
I think
and
so.
The public,
and the public. And, you know, in fairness, she has a right to reply, and she is right. We don't have any idea what goes on behind closed doors, and we don't really have the right to comment on her relationship. So,
because there was a lot of kind of talk about poor Dee, she's in this awful relationship and kind of thing, wasn't there?
Exactly, yeah. And is she too embarrassed
she was
to turn
a
up
bit
to
of a
court?
victim herself.
Exactly, yeah. And she's with this man a long time, and she's making a decision to be with him. So, you know, she does have a right to speak out. She says she believes him. Obviously, a lot of people won't agree with that, but again, that's her opinion.
But doesn't detail what he said, or is it this narrative that so she believes him about what he said in court, that he picked up this
that they had, obviously, that she didn't rape,
sex twice without a condom.
Yeah,
so she believes that.
She just says, I believe him, and his story is that they had consensual sex and that he didn't rape Nikita Hand. So that's the way we take it, that she believes him.
Yeah.
But I suppose, so, you know, you don't necessarily agree with all that, but you can understand that. But I suppose what you can't really understand, or what, you know, you can call out, is the stuff she put up on her Instagram stories, which aren't, and they only stay for 24 hours, but obviously it's been reported, so we'll have a record of that.
So what did she say there?
But I actually wouldn't like to repeat all of it, but she basically turns on Nikita Hand, and she actually claims, you know, makes allegations against Nikita Hand and her conduct, and says things along, this is one thing she said, imagine a woman, and she capitalizes woman, with her own boyfriend and child, texting provocative pictures of herself to another woman's man with the family and a child on the way. This woman claims to know me, yet she still went ahead and sent messages and pictures of herself over and over to my man. Really? ? all the while out of her face in a hotel room, dancing around a hotel car park. What sort of woman are you? So, like, I suppose
directly at
it's
Nikita
directly
Hand.
at Nikita Hand, and she actually goes on to make claims against her and then talks about CCTV doesn't lie. And I suppose the thing that has most caught fire on social media, especially particularly with women, is the comment where she says, "My sons will be warned, women like you exist in the world." Because obviously, you know, she has 3 sons, but she also has a daughter, and there's no mention there of her partner's conduct. Now, she does say that myself and Conor dealt with these issues years ago behind closed doors, which, you know, we don't know what goes on in the relationship. That's fine. But, you know, there's nothing there about, you know, what he did wrong. It's all on the woman,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just a double standards is really like clear to see there, you know.
My straw poll, which is probably absolutely useless, but while I was scrolling through various things in the evenings when you're kind of thinking what you're going to talk about the next day, just from looking, it's like, has Dee Devlin lost that sympathy that she got when she came out of court looking broken, that people felt, poor Dee, you know, she's in this relationship that we've had a window into, which doesn't look very nice relationship to be in. Has she lost that? Because a lot of people seem to be
Well, she does.
really
She finishes that comment, that rant, as we describe it, with the line, "They without sin cast the first stone," which is obviously a biblical quote. Now, she has now cast the stone herself.
Exactly.
Like, Dee Devlin is certainly a private citizen, but to a degree, she's engaged in a lot of public activities. Like, she's been on documentaries. She doesn't have to be there. She's choosing to be there. She's done a lot of.
She's rarely spoken. She always seems to be running behind him, and he doesn't seem to hold a door for her.
Yeah.
Or
No.
whenever you see her, she's sort of always trying to catch up, isn't she?
And gazing adoringly at him.
And he's constantly, like, he's a man that certainly doesn't seem to be kind of always conscious that she's there, or that he's always empathetic to her being there in his celebrity, because he's obviously the one that everybody's looking at. He doesn't sort of mind her or bring her in. You know, the way you sometimes see.
So there's a couple of things, right? So she's cast the stone at Nikita Hand. Now, Dee Devlin appeared for the final day of the court proceedings. She didn't sit through the trial. She didn't, as far as I remember, she wasn't in court when Nikita Hand gave her testimony. That was the testimony, also the testimony of the medical professionals. So she's chosen to believe Conor McGregor, which of course she's entitled to do, but she's chosen as well to come out publicly and, you know, cast judgment on both the decision of the court and Nikita Hand's actions. And obviously the thing that jars is that she makes a moral judgment on Nikita Hand for her activities. And she clearly doesn't put the same moral judgment on Conor McGregor's activities, even if you accept that she doesn't accept the verdict. There's 2 people involved in. Conor McGregor can get a text deleted and block the number, 100%. But he 100% chooses to respond. It doesn't make sense.
No.
But the point I'm making as well is with Dee Devlin, right? So she is there with Conor by his side, but we have not heard her talk or her opinions, have we? I mean, she will post on Instagram or whatever. She posts on family moments, her time with Conor, loving him or whatever, or babe, or supportive of him. But have we ever before heard, certainly not a strong opinion on anything, but her opinion? So we don't really know what.
No, we don't know anything really about her other than she's Conor McGregor's partner.
Yeah.
He's always spoken about how she was with him from the start and how she's part of, you know, she's rolled in his businesses and they're together for life, and everything that she's known publicly is linked to him. So she's obviously, it's almost like she's center of his entourage. You said she doesn't always appear as the partner beside him. She appears as part of that.
Yes.
And you could see that in the court last week with everybody turning up. It was almost like mafia, like they've been summoned all to be there. So she's very much part of that. But yeah, we don't know anything about her publicly. And I guess the thing that has really...
Is this our first insight into her then? Her...
She has done previous interviews. For example, in 2021, she spoke of how she goes the extra mile for her love to make sure he performs at his best, is how it's described. this is what Conor does, so I'm definitely all in. I'm 100% on his team, by his side. I help him out in every way I can. I do his shopping. His shopping separate from the others. Make sure he has all the best stuff and all organic ingredients. I definitely don't keep distance. So she has done a couple of these.
Yeah, no, I've seen a bit of that.
But it's
but
all
that's not
linked
an
to
opinion,
him.
is
No,
it?
but that's
No.
all linked to him.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
saying.
And
that,
it's a very
all
kind of
tied in with him.
marketing-y, isn't it?
No, yeah, it's all tied in with him. And
No, this is tied in with him, obviously,
This
too, but
too,
it's
but-
different because she is lashing out.
we're seeing her side.
We're,
Yeah,
we're seeing a different side now. She's
Yeah.
in a difficult position, you have to say.
she is in a difficult position. But my issue with it is, again, not her speaking out, because she is having a lot of people say things about her. People don't really know her. We don't really know the relationship. There's all various types of relationship goes on in the world. So, she wants to say our relationship is our business.
Yeah.
We dealt with it behind closed doors. That's absolutely fair
Yes.
enough. But it's the making judgment on another woman
Yeah.
and her antics and not trying to strike any balance there. And also, just the calling out in relation to how her son is going to know what women what women like Nikita are, who they are, because that's really caught fire on social media, because people are actually sharing that and saying, yes, your son will know like women like me, women like Nikita Han. They're also representing Natasha O'Brien. So
Yeah.
it's actually become a focal point for women speaking out against violence, to say that that's good that you tell your son that women like that aren't going to put up with what McGregor has put Nikita through. So, it's actually kind of backfired on her in that way.
There's a huge movement coming against. I mean, with last time we spoke about it, you kind of do think, is Ireland big enough to make a difference? But it kind of is now. I mean, airports, everybody's pulling out of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think
and sorry, he has sold this drink.
Yeah.
He has sold Proper 12, yeah?
Yeah,
He's
but he still
so-
owns Forged Stout. That's
Okay,
still
but
his.
he doesn't hold a percentage. I think I misrepresented that.
No, but they were using his likeness.
They were using his likeness. So
And they said they're not doing
they're
that
not doing it
anymore.
anymore. So is it Proper 12 that's been moved from the shelves as
Both.
well as
Forged Stout and Proper 12. Well, obviously, Forged Stout is being served, had been served in Wetherspoons and
Yeah,
bars, and it's
they're
been removed
stopping.
there. Cork Airport, Dublin Airport, are removing it from their bars, and then Proper 12, the whiskey, obviously that's stocked in shops. That's
So
been
where's
removed.
Proper 12 at? Because he has sold it. He's already made his money out of it, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to use his image. Presumably they've some contract that they can continue to use his image.
Yeah, some
Presumably
sort of
that's a business
marketing,
contract. He's not
Yeah.
giving them that for free. But the actual drink itself, where is it left after it? Because are you able to disentangle Conor McGregor from Proper 12? That will be up to the marketers, I presume, and the people who spent a fortune buying this, not realising that this was coming up. But it's a bit of a nightmare for them.
It is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. And Forged Irish Stout, of course, is making big headway. Like
Is it?
Well, it has been. So that's a real blow to this, to that business. You see what's happened is, this Conor McGregor's posts on Instagram and Dee Devlin's posts, presumably they're put out in the aim of quelling some of the distaste for what for McGregor's actions. But in fact, you have to say it's accelerated it. I mean, the reaction to the social media posts has been almost as shocking as people have been as shocked by them nearly as the verdict. I mean, it's a classic example of absolutely making things worse reputationally. I mean, people don't, like, whatever way you feel about anything to do in court, like, that woman came out on the steps of that court and cried, and you could feel the emotion and pain in her, and for that then to be continued up in this way, like, it is quite shocking. And
there's another element of it that even without all of that happening, to suggest as somebody as public a figure as Dee Devlin and him, obviously, that people aren't entitled to comment on them as a couple.
Yeah.
And yet they have millions of social media followers and their entire social media offerings are them as a couple and a family.
It's
so
parts of his deal.
it's okay to sort of say positive about them, but not to have any other commentary.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about them because they're out there now they have both.
Certainly the private
But what do you
aspect.
see as a couple? Like with Dee Devlin, is this somebody who has a really antiquated view of the world, who sees that a man can do what it is he wants and that you are there no matter what to back and support that man?
It's hard to know, and we've all speculated about that. But in relation to the points there about does she hold different standards for her children, the one thing that did stand out as well from that post that I haven't referenced is that she spoke about Nikita Hand as a mother and said, you as a mother explaining to your child where you were on the Saturday, on the Sunday, on the Monday, referencing obviously the incidents that she sued Conor McGregor for. And that really does. And then she goes on to say, my sons will know women like you. So that is really, she's basically saying there, like, how could you be gone for so long? Like, you're a terrible mother, essentially.
And Nikita Hand actually spoke in her statement about her own daughter. Was it Freya?
Yeah, Freya. Yeah.
And she thanked her for her support and said that it was for Freya and girls like her that she did what she did.
Yeah, but she basically is making these points, and the obvious, and this is what people are very annoyed at, because the obvious counter to that is, well, you were at home, you were heavily pregnant. She gave birth only weeks later to her daughter, I believe. And where was your co-parent? He was out doing, doing X, Y, and Z. So it's kind of the double standard there that, she's making judgments on Nikita Hand as a mother because she wasn't there. We don't know. Nikita Hand mightn't have been out for a year before that. We don't know. It was her Christmas party. Her parents not entitled to go out. So she's making judgments on, you were telling lies and you weren't there for your child. Yet there's no, doesn't seem to be the same expectation on Conor McGregor as a father being out and not being there for his child and partners. So I think in that sense, it suggests, is there an antiquated view there? But obviously we don't know her, but
Look, I mean, you have to say you can't conflate the two things. I mean, people can go out and be drunk and you can say, just that shouldn't have done that. Like, that's a whole other matter than somebody who's been found liable for what's described as a rape in court. You can't conflate people not being perfect with something that is so, a violent attack. It's just not the same thing. You can't say one thing leads to another. And I have to say, look, she's entitled to say people don't know what goes on behind closed doors or whatever. But, the reality is that she's put herself now in a position where she can't say, I'm a private person. I don't want people to discuss me.
No, she can't.
Because she is now entered into the arena of making public statements on the moral behaviour of somebody else.
Yeah. Well, it's very hard to see how, I suppose, you always try and compare somebody, or your natural thing is to compare somebody with yourself. I just find it so hard to connect with her and to what she's saying without trying to desperately find a reason that she is supporting him in the face of the evidence, in the face of what he admitted doing himself, and in the face of the fact that she has decided to come out and lash out at another woman who a jury has been. So do you know what I mean? So when you say things like, you're kind of really hoping that there's something there that explains this behaviour, because to me it is so far away from how a woman should behave towards another woman or speak out in relation to this.
Yeah, well, I think it's very outdated view on women and how they should be held more accountable for their behaviour. It's almost expected of men and it's not expected of women. And it's sort of, and that is why this movement, this anti-violence against women movement is so taken with these comments, because this is, we've heard these kind of sentiments for years and years. Where were you? Why were you out? Like, why were you drunk in a taxi? Maura Higgins did an interview last week where she spoke about being sexually assaulted by a taxi driver in Dublin in Ireland because she fell asleep drunk in the front of a taxi, and her boyfriend said, well, why were you so drunk? So women have been hearing this kind of thing for so long, were you not minding your kids, were you not at home, all of this kind of thing. So we don't know Dee Devlin, but she's giving out these views and she is casting judgment on other women, so she's going to be judged for that, and you can't really blame that, but you just think like that this is why this strong sort of sentiment has become such a big part of our society now, because people are sick of hearing that. These cases that come to court, it's not like I grew up you're seeing cases like, or hearing stories about Larry Murphy and thinking that was what rape was. But
Yeah.
that is very rare, a woman just being randomly targeted.
For sure.
These cases are very messy. There's various different factors involved, you know, and there is no such thing as a perfect victim. So, you know, for someone like Dee Devlin with a public profile to turn around and say that about Nikita Hand, it's just, and
It stops you in your tracks,
does,
doesn't it?
yeah.
And you're looking, and what you see is a young woman with so much, really, she has so much compared to other people, private jet, you know,
Of course.
all the wealth and the power that would go with that. And you're kind of going, what are you doing with that? And what, you know, you should be, you have a voice, and you hope that another woman, a young woman, would use that in a modern way and for good. And instead, it's like as if what she's spoken about and what she said, it's like as if we've been dragged back to an era.
Yeah.
And the whole portrayal of it, even really, to be honest with you, the whole portrayal of it.
Like, it can have some compassion for people if they're in this kind of real intense bubble, which people can get when they're celebrities, and she's in an intense bubble with him, and presumably a whole rake of staff and entourage of yes men telling him he's right, and that's what she's exposed to. So you can have some compassion for her, maybe to believe him and, you know, to take his side. But
she loves him, obviously. Some
she
people
does,
just
and I think as well, though, the families are so close and tight and have been for years, and you know,
so you can have some compassion for her.
She's so close to his mother, obviously, to his sisters, and
so it's a real, and when you have young kids, your world gets narrower actually, because you're kind of.
Do you think it does if you're that rich, though? Seriously.
Well, I don't look. I'm just.
Do you think it does?
Well, it doesn't. It shouldn't.
Well, maybe for her, if that's how she views,
I sometimes, you know, you speak
out.
about these guys in like an organised crime, and the richer they get, and all the rest of it, the smaller their world becomes, and they end up like in this tiny little existence where they just can't go out and they can't.
Yeah.
So obviously, but it's the tone is so wrong, and you have to look at what has happened since the social media posts, which only added fuel to the fire in terms of his reputation. You know, so I mean, we've had all of these companies. Today we had Wetherspoons, which is only, I think, a handful of pubs in Ireland, but they also said they're withdrawing it from the UK market.
So that must be big, yeah?
So that is a big deal.
Yeah.
Obviously, he is never going to be poor, and he's never going to not have people supporting him. He still has a market in the US, a market that's not dependent on sort of the mainstream, but it's whatever they are doing now, they're only making it worse for themselves. And I mean, that poor girl, he has an entourage. He has huge amounts of money. They have huge amounts of wealth and people to support them, you know, give them advice. That girl, Nikita, is presumably sitting at home with just a handful of people around her who probably don't have that experience or access to power.
But
or
she
privilege.
must be feeling the support of the nation because she's getting it. And I mean, and the support of those businesses. I'm sure that feels.
It does. I know, and it's great that she's not alone, but and she isn't alone because she does have the general support of the public. But it's still stark when you think about the fact that they can jet off anywhere in the world for 2 weeks. And she's stuck there. You know?
But I mean, like, what are this going to be like for them going out again? By the way, I wouldn't like to be the two of them going into court because I think this has been, you know, it'll be interesting to see how the court reacts to this stuff. I mean, how the judge, Justice Alexander Owens, who will be, like, it's not his place to maybe criticize. Is it his place?
Well,
I mean, he's meeting for cause. Like, is it okay to comment on jury decisions like that?
I mean, there is obviously free speech in this country. Is the case done? Is like,
do you not respect the decision of a jury of your peers?
Well, you're held accountable for what you say. You're held accountable for what you say.
And I hope he does, to be honest.
Is there contempt of court in relation to commenting on judgments?
Well, it's not a trial anymore, so
No, there wouldn't be contempt
I
of
don't think
court
so.
because you're not going to prejudice the jury. But look, it's a very unusual situation because the case is theoretically at an end.
But
But they're
contempt
hearing
of court can be if your phone goes off in a courtroom.
it can.
Yeah.
It can.
So
Yeah,
it's
and
not
we-
just prejudicing a jury, contempt of court. It's for all different reasons.
It can be.
Yeah.
But what speech outside the court typically you're accountable for it in a sense, but it would be slightly different. And
Because he did. Sorry, it's a quick question. He did label the court kangaroo court. Conor McGregor. This was during one of his rants on Saturday.
Yeah.
So
And they've spoken about some of the stuff we haven't read out is their claims of what is in an original investigation. It's their view of what's in an original investigation, which wasn't before the courts.
No.
So they're talking about aspects that weren't before the court.
Yeah. So, and you do hear judges, and Alexander Owens is known for it in cab cases, giving opinion on matters of the day. So I don't know whether there's anything binding there, but he probably can. Hopefully he does call them out because it has been really shocking, what's gone on. And I think they just got it wrong. Whoever's giving them PR advice needs to be sacked because things have just changed so much.
Do you think they're taking advice? Do you think that they're people who can be directed? They come across as people who don't take direction, who make their own decisions, and that couldn't possibly be advice from anybody to go do that, surely.
Well, hopefully
certainly not a professional.
Well, he does have a habit of putting things up in. He took down the original post he put up on Friday. It must have been in the car on the way home. It was so soon after the verdict, and he put up saying he was appealing, and that was taken down. So I don't know if people, when he cools down, maybe people say it to him then, but no, he does what he wants. He's always been like that. And we don't know whether it's his influence on her or, if she has that kind of offhand reaction the same way as well. But that stuff on Monday night, you kind of we weren't expecting that.
But he's back training, he said. For what?
Yeah, he said he's back training, but he hasn't fought since 2021, and obviously he was injured during the year. So
you'd imagine there'd be a flurry of publicity, bad publicity for him around anything he announced as regards his sporting career now, would you?
Well, it's the MMA, so a bit of bad publicity.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be the first fighter to get bad publicity. So his UFC career will continue.
Yeah.
But if he that's what he wants, but it'll just never be the same for him again in Ireland, and it's not going away. And Instagram posts slagging people off, it's not going to change it.
No. That's just not the way these days with that kind of putting that kind of sentiment out there. People aren't just putting up with it anymore. And I suppose with her as well, she maybe had a certain amount of sympathy, as you said, and I think that's gone now because there's always been talk about what goes on in their relationship, and there's been so many rumors about him. Sure, he had to. I was just researching today. We had a story from the Irish Independent in 2019 where he had to take a paternity test because there was UK media reports about how he'd allegedly fathered a child weeks actually before his first son was born, and he completely denied that, and the paternity test showed he wasn't the father. But there's always been
all sorts of rumors and stories
over the years. And I know she referenced the other night about how they dealt with that issue, but that's one issue. But we've heard so many different issues, and he's been arrested for various different things in other countries as well.
And assault and violence and sort of thuggery, like punching people in pubs. We've seen the video of that. He never faced any criminal charges for it.
No.
He did, of course, in New York after he chucked a chair or something at a
UFC, at a bus in the UFC event. He was late beaten by that fighter, wasn't he, as well? So and then obviously he has conviction for assaulting a man. I nearly said elderly. He doesn't like a man in the Marble Arch pub.
Yeah, that's right. But there was no criminal charges taken, was there?
No, there was. He was fined for that, wasn't he? Yeah, he was fined for that.
He didn't receive a conviction, but he was found to have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's loads, he and then he obviously nearly got jailed during the summer for dangerous driving. He has he has 20 convictions here, and he's off the road for 2 years. That's another thing Dee Devlin talking about her man. It's like father your children can't even drive at the moment because he's been off the road for 2 years. So
well, she's welcome to her man, I think, really is what generally the female population anyway this country would.
I think so,
say,
yeah. Oh, I think so, yeah. I don't think
man,
any money in the world.
Absolutely no money.
I'd really like a Christian Dior bag, but not that much.
God, no, definitely not.
No.
Thank you.
No.
So we'll come back to this next week when these costs are decided, and we'll see if anything does emerge in the courtroom in regard to any of these social media postings. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.